Hi guys, welcome to my channel, Coaching Miss P. As you know, guys, I love bringing content that is of wellness and well-being, talking about femininity and mental wellness. And it's in the heart of winter, and I am literally freezing. So that's why you guys can see I've got my cup of tea with me and a very good friend of mine here sitting next to me. It's so beautiful to have her with me here. You know, she stays in Kimberley and she comes to Joburg and visits us. And, we've been friends for a very long time. And I thought this episode would be amazing if I bring a very good friend of mine who actually has been my friend since childhood, I think since grade 9. And it's many years later. Don't ask me how many, but it's a lot of years later. And she's here, we call her Bertha, we call her Lesego, we call her Big B, we call her Mama. LSG. Introduce yourself to my audience.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Lesego, as Pride said. Yes, we've been friends since high school. We met at the National School of Arts. We were both doing drama there. And decades later, we are still here.
Decades.
Yeah, it's by the grace of God. And we just thank God for all those years of friendship and sisterhood. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to have this conversation.
Yeah, friend. And I know, if there's anyone that has been we want to hear your content, want to hear your work, it's been you, So thank you so much for always being so supportive and encouraging on what I do, What intrigues you about the space that I'm in terms of wellness so much?
I think it's because everyone needs it. Personally, I'm also in the space of health. I'm a health sociologist. So I look at the social factors that affect people's health in terms of where they work, where they live, and things like that, inequalities, poverty. So I am quite interested in issues of health and wellness. Outside of what we call the biomedical model, but yeah, it's very important to understand issues of mental health and well-being. And yeah, that's why I love your channel and I love the work that you're doing, because I think it's so important for society, for people to have that self-awareness and be intentional about their healing. We have so much traumas that we are trying to heal from, especially as Black people. I think it's so important for us to have these conversations and for us to heal from the past, generational traumas, and traumas from childhood and at some point in your life, and to process it and to be able to have that self-awareness,
What are you intentionally healing at this point in time? And what are you finding that as a Black nation, we are needing to go through from a healing perspective?
Sure, that's a loaded question. I'm healing from a lot of things. A whole lot of things.
So I won't get into too much information about that or too much details about that. Maybe another time. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, I'm using a whole lot of methodologies. I mean, firstly, I'm a Christian, so that's my first
base.
Yeah, praying, reading the Bible.
Sure.
So that helps me a lot in terms of regulating my emotions and my feelings. And then exercising and all of that. So I think as a Black nation, sure, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things, especially in the South African context. If you're looking at issues of unemployment, as I said, a lot of people are depressed, and it is because of these socio-economic issues, unemployment, inequalities, and absent fathers, traumas from childhood, and a lot of people are still healing from apartheid, from segregation.
We don't talk about that. We really don't talk about that, eh?
Yeah, apartheid did not end in 1994. A lot of people are still healing from all of that violence that they experienced, and it's physical violence, but it's also structural.
Structural,
violence,
yeah,
right? We are still healing from that. So this idea of the Rainbow Nation, we need to really think about it carefully, and or the born freeze, the idea that people that are born post 1994 are born into democracy and they don't carry all of those burdens, of the past.
Sure.
That's not the case.
Sure.
We see it that poverty is generational. We see how it transfers from one generation to the other.
And how does that affect one's psyche? And I know, you deal with a lot of students as well, teaching socio-economics, sociology rather. How do you find that it impacts a child, especially in the learning environment?
I think we saw, even with the Fees Must Fall in 2015, and even other student protests before that, that the issue of not having access to education, the issue of carrying debt just so you can have a qualification. We had students that don't get residences, that come to university and they're in the streets for, a couple of weeks until they get assistance, there are people who, before the NASFAs, or even those that we call the missing middle, where your parents actually earn enough for you to pay for yourself, but actually when you look at like the household expenditures and everything, they actually can't afford to pay for you. So there are a lot of youth, sitting at home wanting to access education. So I think, Fees Must Fall, Roads Must Fall spoke a lot to those issues and how it affects a student's psyche and their mental health. Because, if you have to go to a lecture and you haven't eaten, how are you supposed to concentrate? How are you supposed to comprehend all of that content? So definitely socioeconomic issues affects mental health. It affects students' experiences of the university, students' experiences of education and learning.
Sure, such powerful thoughts, and especially now because it's the winter season, and a lot of people are going through winter blues, because as you know, in the winter season, when the sun is not out longer than what it is in winter, we normally go through a seasonal depression. We call it SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder, right? So a lot of things are happening. How are you feeling at this point in time?
Yeah, it's usually a tough time for me.
But you're born in winter, so
I am born in winter, and my mom usually says that I'm not supposed to get cold. But yeah, I do get cold, and it does affect my mood, definitely. And I do stay alone, so that also makes it harder. I could say that I'm like, over the years, I think because I've like started understanding the seasonal depression, and I've become more self-aware, like, why am I feeling this way, then I've become more intentional about how I deal with it and how I navigate those low moods and
But how do you deal with it? Because I know a lot of people struggle, especially now in winter. There seems to be a lot of people becoming less hopeful about the future. Again, it's because we don't spend enough time in the sun. There's not enough sun to give us the vitamin D to allow us to actually release hormones that allow us to be a lot more happier. So we are going to feel a bit moody, a bit more drained, or feeling like, life is not going great at this point in time, But it actually means that you need to be, to your point, very intentional about how you navigate through those things. And if you can just give us some tips of what you do.
Okay, well, I try to continue exercising, although it's very difficult, getting up in the morning, going for that run or the jog or walk. But I did it. Even this morning, I was so cold, but I went for my jog, and actually it did me so good. And I also try to get as much vitamin D through the sun as possible.
Which is light therapy.
Yeah. And also eating the right food, I try not.
So what is the right food, friend? Because you know, when we grew up in the past, they'll always be like sopo, you know, magwinya, you know. So what is the right food, especially now that we're talking about mental health and wellness and well-being, you know? There's some foods that we need to almost do a trade-off on, you know, because we believe, especially as Black people, it's all about like fatty food, you know. It actually feels like it's doing good for us, but it's to retain body heat. But you're talking about good food and eating healthy. What is that?
I mean, it's not to say I don't,
Indulge. Yeah.
There and there, I will have like liguinya, fat cakes for those that or dombolo. But I will also try and like make sure that I eat a lot of fruits, a lot of oranges, a lot of fruits, filled with vitamin C, a lot of vegetables as well, and drinking water, because trying to keep warm, drinking lukewarm water, green tea. So it becomes more difficult, definitely, in winter, but one has to be intentional. So I try my best to be intentional. I don't always get it 100% right, but yeah, I try to like remind myself, did I drink water today, and then try to do that.
You spoke about green tea, you know. What is it about green tea? I feel like everyone is, I mean, I'm having a cup of green tea with mint, you know. What is it about it? What does it do?
Well, for me, it helps me with my gut. It just helps to regulate my system, especially if I've been having bad food or, but my system, I've just realized like the older I'm getting that, I have to be more intentional in terms of getting more green tea, fiber, things that will help to regulate my gut. Because I feel like once your gut is out of balance, it also affects your mood.
It affects your brain as well. Yeah.
That it actually helps with my emotions, with my mood. So I try as much as possible to always have green tea and have things that are high in fiber to regulate the system.
Let's talk about color, using color in this period, because we are talking about seasonal depression and a lot of people feeling sad in the winter season. How do you then play with color?
In various ways. I'll try like maybe with what I wear. Well, today I'm wearing black.
But you've got a beautiful red lip. So yeah.
So I'll try a lot with my clothes. And I also have a coloring book with scriptures, so that also helps me, like, and also in my house, just to have color around. So that also helps a lot with my mood.
And with color especially, I always advocate for people when it's this time of the year to go for a little bit of the brighter colors. I know that it's nice to wear, a little bit dark, your black coats and all of that, but the more color, the vibrancy of like a red or an orange that you wear in the season, you actually bring warmth, not only to yourself, but maybe to also the people that you engage with, because it just lightens up the spirit. It lightens up, and it helps with the mood as well. It changes the energy in the room. And it just allows your aura to be a lot more out there and allowing in that space that you're in. So I think if there's anything besides eating well and doing the exercises and things like that, but it's also making sure that you are wearing a little bit of color, I know the color for the season right now seems to be nude a lot more. But in that, how do you also pair it up? I mean, ladies, tonight it's also nice because we can do like a nice lippy as well. You can do like a nice scarf, accessorize with like a nice colorful little bag and things like that. And maybe when I do my get ready with me, which you love so much, I'll show the audience what kind of thing you can do to just pair up the winter color, So anything else on wellness that you do that you've adopted, because we've been having this movement and this conversation for a while? What else for you?
For me, I also do a lot of journaling. I journal quite regularly. In fact, I had to buy a new journal on Saturday, the past Saturday.
It's very nice. Yeah, the one you showed me.
Yeah. The one that I had is finished. Well, it's filled up. The pages are filled up. So, and this one is also nice because it also has scriptures per page. So it's also nice, like whilst I'm journaling, to also meditate on that scripture. Yeah, and I think for me, fellowship as well, I try my best to not to self-isolate and withdraw. I think I've tended to do that a lot.
You stay alone as well, so yeah.
Yeah, and also in a different province, I don't know a lot of people there. So I do tend to like isolate a bit, but I try to be more intentional with, just going out a bit, fellowshipping, going to church, going to cell group. That really helps me a lot, to interact with people, and not just, as much as I enjoy my space a lot and I enjoy being alone, but I also try like remind myself like it's important to get out there and also like interact with other people.
You spoke a little bit about how from a societal perspective, there's so many gaps. How do you bring this kind of information to that audience as well, to people that also need it, because we are a collective at the end of the day? How do we engage in a meaningful way that also bridges the gap for all different types of audiences and society, given where we are as a nation right now?
Yeah, I think through social media, since a lot of people are on social media, a lot of people are watching YouTube, Instagram, and so forth. So I think that is such a good space, like what you're doing, giving that information. But also in your personal, interpersonal interactions with friends, with family, with colleagues, you can just advise, suggest things, if you hear that someone is struggling with something, you're like, hey, have you tried gratitude journaling? That helps just to just think about the positive things in your life, and not just focus on the negative. Not to say that, you are in denial of the negative things that are happening or you are ignoring them. You still have to deal with them. But it also helps, just to be grateful of everything else in your life. Yeah, so I think through all the different mediums, but I really enjoy like the one-on-one like interactions. Like I like hearing what people are doing, what practices they are implementing for better well-being, and wellness.
I know this is possibly like I'm throwing it out the park in terms of like a different kind of question, but we just come from political, voting rather. Yeah, we come from elections, and sure, how has that affected you? Like, given where we are, I mean, we're talking about seasonal depression, and there's a lot of change that is happening. It changes the social structuring in a way. For you, what does that mean for you right now?
That and mental health. I'm actually, I've taken it like quite positively. I think I'm one of those people that have been saying that the 2024 elections is our 1994.
Sure.
Because I mean, we've seen with the results that the changes that have happened, and people going out in numbers to vote compared to the other years, and people wanting to voice out. I feel that is so important, and I'm excited about where the country is going, in terms of people really feeling empowered to speak out, and people wanting their voices to be heard. So I'm all for this collective voice, and for using your agency, no matter how little you might think it is. Some people think voting is just, you're just a drop in the ocean, but it matters. Even the conversations that you're having with the people around you, it matters. Like, what policies do you want to see implemented? Like, what manifestos speak to you? Those political conversations are so important.
But do you think people understood that before? Because I feel like 2024 hit us, and we were disgruntled, right? But it was in this political era that people started talking about policies and manifestos and things like that. But I think before that, they didn't know. Do you think that people got that, drilled it down to that perspective for these ones specifically?
I think it's always been the case. Yeah, it's always been the case. I don't know, maybe the media has highlighted it more. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it's always been the case that, like you vote. People vote based on various reasons, right? It might be representation, also manifestos, policies, feeling that they identify with their political party. I mean, we saw with these elections that there were a lot of identity politics involved. So yeah, all of those reasons. But yeah, I'm feeling quite optimistic about the country. As much as we have so many issues right now, but I feel that just by people standing up and wanting their voices to be heard and being intentional about that, even especially amongst the youth, I feel that is important. And I hope that it's not just this like election period, but that it just continues, that whole spirit, and that it just continues throughout the years to come.
Okay, so let's wrap it up because, we've spoken about various things, and I think it's quite important to talk about those things. But from a mental wellness perspective and well-being, and we talked about seasonal depression and other things, what other mental wellness space do you think we should be, or mindset should we be having right now as a nation and as a people?
Sure. What mindset? I think we need to take it seriously. That's firstly, like, I feel sometimes we joke about it, some people like overlook it, but it really is part of us, like if we're talking about health is not just in the body, like the diseases that we commonly know, diabetes and so forth, but mental health is also a health condition, and it's a serious one at that it is important for companies, for organizations, to look into that for their employees, have wellness days and so forth, and be intentional about it. It must not just be a box ticking
exercise,
like what we've seen with some organizations.
But for people to take it really seriously, churches as well, yes, it's important to pray, to read the Bible, but if you do need therapy, and if you do need to see a psychologist, please do that. And if you do need to take medication, please do that, So I think our pastors also need maybe to get more awareness around that, so that they preach the right message to the congregation, like people must not throw away their medication and like say that they're acting in faith. I feel like science.
I think that's such a powerful thing, because I think that's such a powerful point around, just because you're going to church doesn't mean that you stop taking medication, especially for your mental health and your mental well-being, because if your mind is not right, then everything else is not okay. Yes, have faith. But you were saying science is from God.
Yeah.
I believe science is from God. I believe all these inventions and innovation is from God, So I think it would be unwise for us not to use all of these resources that are available to us, that will better our lives, that will better our well-being.
Science is from God.
That's what I believe. Yeah. So I believe all these different institutions, within society, need to be more intentional about mental health issues and to take it seriously, and create the environment whereby people can have these conversations and feel supported, so that we can really grow and prosper and thrive. It's hard to thrive when you're not in a good space, when you're not mentally well, but when you are well and you feel supported, man, you thrive. You are so productive. You just like shoot for the stars. So
And what message do you have for the youth? Because they're struggling a lot. They're struggling with depression. They're struggling with identity. They're struggling with so many things, The pressure is on for them. And I think that, up until this point, in our days of being young and youthful, we never talked about mental health, but we were struggling with mental health too, Now it's out. We have more awareness. We can, what message do you have for them, in this time?
Yeah, I think it's to continue the conversations, have the conversations with their parents, with their family, if they feel perhaps that maybe the knowledge is not there or the awareness is not there among certain family members, maybe educate them about it, but yeah, open up and have the conversation.
But the youth is very mum about things. I mean, think about yourself when you were growing up. How many things did you tell your mom until you got to this age, So I feel like sometimes them talking about it might not necessarily be the answer, because they might not know who to talk to, especially in the home environment, I feel like there's a lot more that we need to be engaging with them on, in terms of them understanding this space, understanding themselves, because I think it's a matter of understanding yourself, when you're high, when you're low, when things are not right, so perhaps maybe another thing is just self-awareness for the youth, so that they can just know themselves, they can just feel, because you have so many changes, right? Not from a body perspective only, but from a mental perspective. So when you understand these changes and you kind of learn yourself a bit better, you are then able to then articulate or know where to go to get the information, because talking on its own doesn't necessarily always solve the problem when you can't figure it out, So I think we still have a long way to go in terms of educating on mental health and mental wellness, but also getting the youth to understand themselves, because I think that's where understanding starts. We're learning about understanding ourselves now and awareness on self now, but I think them understanding themselves at this space and this juncture of their lives, it's very, very important, so that
But I also think it's multi-generational, hey?
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's not just a youth issue, but it's across different age groups.
Okay, unpack that for us.
That's why I'm saying the conversation should be had, across the different age groups, across generations. Because a young person can actually educate their mother about mental health issues, like they can educate them, especially because they are so exposed now to so much information, the internet, social media, and vice versa, of course. And I also think like things are slowly changing, in terms of the transparency and conversations between children and their parents. And I'm hoping that will continue. But most importantly, as I said, I think it has to also come from institutions, structurally, like workplace, as I said, churches and so forth. Like they need to create that environment, those spaces, where people can have these conversations and they can feel supported.
And it's the support to thrive. I think that's the most important thing. Sure, Lesego, thank you so much. We can talk here and forget that there's lights, camera, actions. We think we are in NSA again.
Just between the two,
just between the two of us. And as you guys saw, we can tap into all kinds of conversations. We can talk about different things, at different levels, which is quite nice about our friendship, because we always know how to cover and hold space for each other where we need to hold space for each other on. Any last message that you want to say about wellness, about the show? I'm sure this is not going to be your last show with me, so.
Yeah, there's nothing much, just that I'm really glad to have had this conversation with you. And yeah, just to encourage everybody to take care of themselves, be intentional, one day at a time. Do what you can. You don't have to run a marathon. If you can't, just take that short walk, 10-minute walk. It will improve your mood. Just do what you can, and you whatever that you can do, it's great for your well-being and wellness.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you so much. All the way from Kimberley, guys. I fetched her from the city of diamonds to come and have this conversation with us. She is born and bred in Joburg, but she's working in Kimberley. And, I thought it would be great for us to have this conversation. It's her birthday month as well, so which is very exciting for me to have her on the show. So thank you so much, friend. Keep on doing the great work that you're doing from a community perspective, but also on yourself, because, self-care is just as important. Thank you for coming in to talk about, seasonal depression. But as you saw, guys, we spoke about a different array of things which talk to mental health. And how it affects our minds, especially for the young people out there, the youth. It's important for you guys to understand, mental health, understand how it affects you, and understand how you can impact the environment around you, especially this youth month. Guys, till the next episode, thank you so much for joining in and for listening in with my lovely friend here. Guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so that I can bring in more content for you guys. And till the next show, I hope you guys will leave your comments, and you have a good one, and you just keep warm. Don't forget to dress in colorful clothing where you can, or accessorize colorfully, so that you can just pick up your mood and get to understand yourself a bit more this winter season. We are together, and if you're feeling low, you're feeling down, you can always send me a message, and we can have a one-on-one coaching session to talk about where you're at and what's happening in your life right now. With that said, guys, love and light. Thank you so much. Bye.